most people assume that the cause of the temple is effectively the cause of the Brahmin, or it is the cause of one caste or one community. As far as I'm concerned, that institution belongs to everyone who falls within the Hindu fold. And therefore, if you're trying to free temples from government control, you're not fighting the cause of one particular caste or community, but you're fighting the cause for an entire faith, for an entire value system, for a group of communities, so to speak. Because if you try and understand Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma through the prism of, let's say, Abrahamic religions, you will fail for the simple reason this has got no comparison. This has got absolutely no benchmark. This is a very different system altogether. We are a bunch of schools of thought. To most people of this generation who do not understand how India works on the ground, this would come across as narrow-minded. But to most people who understand what the essence of India is, this is how India has always functioned. People looking out for each other within the same community. How many of you are aware of the fact that temple at one point of time used to be the institution for lending money, used to function as a bank? The trade guilds were established from within temples. So, as far as I'm concerned, it is important to reinforce the centrality of this institution called temple in the lives of people. Not to make them religious, but to at least make them cultural to some extent. How is this connected to the broad issue that's going on in today's scenario? The Sabarimala case, as far as I'm concerned, is perhaps the encroachment of the state, not just in the secular aspects of the administration of the temple, but now the state is also interfering with the religious aspects of the temple. India is a secular country. Is that the assumption? Yes or no? How many of you believe that India is a secular country? At least on paper. If it is a secular institution, if it is a secular country, therefore the state is supposed to maintain a distance from religious institutions. Yes or no? Yes. If that is the answer, isn't the state supposed to maintain a distance from all religious institutions? Yes. Therefore, the amount of control that the state exercises over religious institutions of different faiths must be at least similar or the same? Yes. Do you have an endowments board for mosques? Do you have an endowments ministry for churches? Do you have an endowments ministry for gurudwaras? Do you have an endowments ministry for synagogues in this country? Then why do you have an endowments ministry for only Hindu religious institutions? By having a dedicated ministry that chooses to exercise control over the religious institutions of only one faith, either you're violating the concept of secularism after claiming for yourself this concept called secularism, that you're a secular country, or while you call yourself a secular country, you operate like a Hindu state, because a state that interferes with Hindu institutions can only do so if it believes that it is Hindu in character. These are the only two options available to you. So either embrace your Hindu character and yet treat everybody equally, or remain true to the concept of secularism and stay equidistant from all institutions. If you choose to straddle on both the boats, you don't do justice to either of the boats. That is the simple concept. When you ask for freedom of Hindu religious institutions from state control, you're not making a statement against any other community. You're not attacking any other faith. You're only attacking the state for its hypocrisy. Ask any member of my generation, or perhaps this age bracket of 18 to 25, and you ask them, what is it about a temple that you hate the most? The one thing that comes out automatically as an instinctive response or an intuitive response, you have to pay money for some of these cues. Why do I have to pay money to have access to the deity? Why do you have these special lines? Why do you have these special queues? But then you ask them, so who has imposed this structure? Who has imposed this rule? Most people won't even be aware of the fact that it is the state which has imposed payment-based queue system across the board in all temples. When tens and thousands of crores of rupees are involved, are you saying that the Indian state, regardless of whoever is in power, whichever party is in power, is capable of running that institution without corruption? Is that even possible? Yes or no? Then why is it that we don't take an active interest in reclaiming our own institutions? And this goes back to a fundamental problem. As long as you think of yourself as an individual, and as long as you think of yourself as an island who's untouched by the developments which are outside your control, this will be the problem. At some point, this community needs to make a decision, needs to take a stand. Will we be silent spectators to this rapid tide of change without even offering so much as a resistance, without even asking questions, without even holding people to account? But if the state chooses to appoint people who shall be the trustees of the board, can you call it an independent institution? Is there a distinction between appointment and election? Yes or no? Election would mean community participation. Yes or no? Appointment would mean zero community participation. Yes or no? Your trustees are appointed. They are not elected. Trustees of every other institution, of every other faith are elected. The Gurudwara elects its own trustees. The Waqf elects its own trustees. The second largest owner of real estate in this country is the church. Please tell me, do you think it is impossible for any kind of corrupt dealings in the church when it comes to the kind of land it holds? Is it inconceivable? Yes or no? It is possible, right? Does the state choose to interfere with the activities of the church, citing corruption? Then why is it that you choose to make an example only out of this community, as if corruption is peculiar only to this community? But whenever I ask this question, I have a few questions that come from the other side. What if the state leaves? Who will take care of our own institutions? So who is taking care of this institution? The state. Does the state conduct your Ganesh Chaturthi pandals and all that? Or even during Dashera? You have local communities which choose to pool in resources, which choose to hold their own festivals and their own functions. That is the innate spirit of this land. Self-reliance is the innate spirit of this land. License permit Raj is the invention of the Congress. But that's not the innate spirit of this country. So if you're capable of running or conducting these functions, is it not possible for the community to take care of its own institutions? The community can perhaps choose to say, we will also take care of members of other communities, but that is a decision that you will take based on your consent. It is not for the state to say, you give your money to this particular entity or this particular community. When under the BJP, which is supposed to be a party with a difference and all that, its chief minister directs the Shirdi temple or any other temple to earmark funds for the purposes of investment in hospitals and roads. Did he seek the permission of the community? So how is it that when it comes to these resources, it is everybody's money? I'm sorry if it sounds narrow, I'm sorry if it sounds parochial. I'm completely open to the resources of this community being used for everybody else's benefit, so long as their resources are also available for everybody else's benefit.